since the beginning of time for us, since we started this business, there was only one true north, which was speed and quality. And that's always going to be true. We're faster than ever, but I think the quality is higher than it's ever been. And whatever tools are powering that process, going to be changing over the next few years. That's for damn sure. They changed this year in comparison to last year and the 5 years before that. So here we are. Yo, what's up, dude? Welcome to Stand Up. We haven't been here in a couple days because just shit got real, but here we are. Happy Friday.
That's right. Happy Friday.
Man, we
Quite
had
exciting.
like a heck of a week. We had a heck of a week over here. Last week, I'll just start on Thursday of last week is when it got like really wild. Last week on Thursday, we had our May edition of the Long Island Technologists meetup, and you and Mr. Donnie D'Amato took the stage. And I would love for you to just give like a little bit of a recap of the topic that you and Donnie were talking about. And then I have a total side quest departure, something that happened to me over the last 2 days, and I won't reveal what it is. But tell me, let's start there.
Yeah, well, we gave a presentation on the future of UI, right? We were calling it Fuck Your UI because basically we think AI enables some incredibly new flows around what was previously, basically we always had to develop UI around the majority of users. You do a bunch of tests, as long as you got something statistically significant, everybody had to use the UI that way. That was the UI that won. We could only present one UI to every user. And personalization was something that it was sort of been pursued by a number of SaaS companies. And I've seen a bunch of website companies over the years try and do this, and they all went out of business.
Right. And what does it even mean?
Yeah, they were doing like e-commerce, and they would try and move it around based on a profile. None of that stuff ended up working. But for the first time ever, we were saying when it comes to tools, you could actually say, hey, do this for me, similar to what we have in Fin, where I can just dump a list of tasks and say, like, add these to this client, give 20 hours to this employee, and it'll just go and do it. And I don't have to go and find it in the UI. We showed the Google Disco, which is a new browser type experience where you are like saying, hey, I want to go on a trip. And it would gradually build pieces of UI on top of one another. And then it would bring you a map and a road trip, and it would show you all the places to stop. And so it actually is building software on the fly. And not that I think these are computationally efficient right now. Obviously, there's a big environmental impact to some of this stuff. So we're not there yet where this is going to become very mainstream, but we were just talking about how AI allows us to think about UI much differently than we ever had before, where each person could get a personalized experience based on what they are looking to do at that time. In terms of data visualizations, in terms of our example was maps was a great example of like doing a road trip. And so it started with a website of reviews, and then it turned into a map and put those reviews on a map. There was a lot that can be said there. So we did an entire presentation on that and ways to think about this differently, and how we were generally excited because this has never really been possible before. And it's a really new thing for everybody. And so we were pretty psyched.
So I've been bombarded lately with this new product called WhisperFlow. Have you been bombarded?
No, I haven't, but I know what it is already.
Okay. So I'm interested in that in a combination, because the interaction with the computer with a product like WhisperFlow is kind of changing. Historically, the voice, the audio version, the speech to text or speech to input has been lackluster.
If you have an iPhone, it sucked.
It's horrible.
No, don't even lie. If you've been using Siri, it sucked, and it still sucks.
Great. It's trash.
And it's been trash. And I don't care. Like Apple, what were you think? You've had Siri for how long?
So
it's always been garbage.
It's crap.
I just sent you a voice. I never use that. I did that for you the other day, and you go, that definitely didn't come out the way that you spoke it, but I got it. And I was like, that's what you get for not reading Siri when you're in the car. And it's like, and it's crazy so because funny. Google's voice assistant is leaps and bounds ahead. Everything I use on my machine that's like open source Linux voice is infinitely better than what Apple has done with Siri, with trillions of dollars and all the data in the world.
Well, what I like about WhisperFlow, and I kind of like their thesis and their approach, which is like a single app to control all of your app surface area for speech to text. And what they're demonstrating in their marketing material is like how well that speech to text product is working. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is not to promote Whisperflow. Like, fuck you guys. You could pay us. The reason why I'm bringing it up is because fuck your UI is directly associated to how we interact with the future of the UI. And I'm even wondering if we're using mouses anymore, if I'm even using a keyboard anymore, or am I in like a verbal relationship? And so I just like am really fascinated with like people that are making progress here. I personally like use a lot of speech to text, especially when I'm driving or if I'm walking or like, you know, my daily morning walk. That's not like standing there typing head down on the phone. I'm speaking. Like the native speech to text works all right, not great, good enough. And so I'm personally like an interested adopter of like the change in the user experience as it pertains to the user interface. And so I'm wondering what you think about that future.
I think a lot of folks would like it. My guess is if I went to use it, I would like it too. I've heard this from other programmers that they're all
That's a big
doing the
use case.
speech.
That's a big use case.
I don't really like sitting here talking. I just prefer silence. Maybe that's just, this goes back to the UI. For me, the voice, I don't take voice notes. Maybe that's because Siri's been so bad and it doesn't come out the way that I want it to. I'm not really a big voice notes user. I will actually stop my walk and type it, or I'll just like pull out the notebook and actually handwrite it. I kind of just get a joy out of handwriting anyway. So that's just for me. For typing, I'm fast as it is. I definitely have heard of people though saying that but for me, I like the going between like my Tmux panes. I still have to use the keyboard to toggle between those things. I guess Whisperflow may take care of that. But I think about too, like, I'm not going to sit on the train or in the airport, I'm not going to sit in the coffee shop with the mic and just like, it just seems, I hope we don't live in that
But
world.
you
It just
might.
seems crazy to me.
Oh, we might.
It seems crazy to me to have a whole bunch of people talking to their devices and not to each other. But that's, if I'm in my office alone, I think I'd like it. Maybe.
I think it's funny you say that. You remember in like the 90s when like the Bluetooth Jawbone came out?
My
And it was
dad,
like,
that stupid thing.
and it was like, if you don't see it in their ear, you're like, is that person cracked out?
Dude,
And
I
now
still see that with the
know, it's just so
AirPods,
weird.
and someone just like, and you're like, what are they talking? You don't have to be on the
I get
phone
it.
all the time,
Literally get
So
it.
this goes back to somebody posted something about how they found that engineers weren't imaginative enough with OpenClaw or something like that. It was some kind of post like this, and I said, it's really interesting. As an engineer, I fall in this weird space. I find a lot of engineers are like this. They don't use a lot of consumer electronic products in their day-to-day life.
Dude, me too.
I don't really care. I got the Google Home. I don't care about it. I don't use the voice activated assistants. I'm not.
No smart TV.
I am, but I have the smart TV, of course, because you have Apple TV. That's smart TV.
Well, I have Apple TV, but the actual physical LG television sitting there is non-intelligent. It is just
no, I know, but if you bought a new one, you can't not get like they don't even think they sell it without that. If you went to BJ's tomorrow, you'd have to end up walking out.
Probably true.
But it's the same concept. What I'm saying is, it's not that. I'm more interested in building OpenClaw than using OpenClaw. Like, you use ZoComputer a lot more than me. I'm more interested in building ZoComputer than using ZoComputer. I don't need to run email automations. If I have that many emails, I just need less friends. Like I don't really want that. That's not my job. My job isn't to really like be out in like a constant state of networking and hunting and cold outreach. And so they talked about it. I said, it's interesting because my interest lies in building the tool. So when people are like, why do you like the CLI tools? Because, well, they're bare. I'm interested in building a GUI, but I'm not interested in using your GUI. And especially now that building's gotten so easy, and let engineers out there, let me know if you're noticing this. Sometimes it goes back to my post yesterday about my favorite tool, the nail gun. I kind of just want to build it because I just want to build it, and I'm not that interested in using it. I'm more interested in building the thing than I am in using the thing that I'm building. So I don't love building a lot of like GUI-based developer tools because I feel like a lot of developers almost prefer now, especially with AI, to use that. Dev tools that are useful are different. There's like very complicated tools that I like. Like, I like the CLI tools. I like Codex, but there's a part of me that's just like, maybe I should just build one myself for fun. And I mean, I already have. I don't use it because I don't want to maintain it. So it goes back to this idea of the I guess what we were talking about. We were talking about whisper flow and different flow states. I was saying that I don't use a lot of technology in my day-to-day life. And in general, when I'm not building, I don't want I want less stuff. I just want less of everything. I don't have a smartwatch. I just want to know the time. The weather, I can see the weather.
Yeah, but what I'm talking about is the change of relationship with the machine, like the change of the way that you input into the machine. And
Yeah, that's
that's
very
possible.
cool.
That's like
It's
very,
very
very
cool.
possible, and it's very practical, and I can
Is
see a
it
total
though?
application for that.
For me, I want to know because I get a lot of like bug reports from people through email. And I usually copy and paste the bug report. When I move to Whisperflow, am I like now speaking the whole bug report and reading it out loud? It
Well,
just seems
well,
like
your
I don't know.
flow of like using your existing tools still exists. It's not like it replaces your experience.
No, I know, but it's like I'd have to speak, and then I got to take a picture of a Figma, maybe, or like go to a Lovable. I don't know. I find the act of typing it out is part of the thinking. So this goes back to like why I don't use AI for writing, because a part of the writing process is a part of the thinking about the thing I'm trying to write about. So I usually have a thought or an idea and a place I want to go with something. And then thinking it out is the act of writing it out. And I guess talking it out could be that way too. My speech is also much less clean than my writing.
Well, that's what's really cool is like the AI support behind it does clean your speech up, which is actually really an interesting. It's less about it's less about like your spell check and grammar perfection. It's like if I stumble on my words or I say I want to meet you at 5, I mean 6, it'll just say I want to meet you at 6 and like delete the error in between and not record that. The intelligence of it I find very interesting. I wonder about the practicality. The reason why I bring it up and why I wanted to start with this conversation is to simply have the thought experiment for other people listening, which is, are you open to a change in your relationship with your interactions with your machine? And so let's fast forward because we had a couple of other things happen. I don't want to spend all of our time on this one. So we've talked about this on a couple of different episodes. Agency life is boom and bust, man. We have boom and bust cycles. Sometimes some years it lasts a little bit longer. Sometimes it's a little bit shorter. Sometimes, you've tried to figure out how to ride your wave and almost like your patient growth stick. We went through like a heck of a drought just for brand new logos. And like
Yeah.
here we are this week, just today, 2 closed today. And so
And you've got like another 2 next week.
and another 2 next week.
And if
And so
everything
this is how it
closes,
goes.
we are now in a surplus scenario. Yeah,
That's
this is the
exactly
hard
right.
thing about being in an agency. And you know what's going to happen, which we can't let happen, but we've done this before, is you slowly start to miss stand up. You start to skip some marketing. And because you're super busy.
That's right.
And then the drought comes and you go. So you have to actually keep the marketing up through the surplus, through the feast, because you need that feast to continue in order to be able to hire people. And you will inevitably hit downslopes and you'll have to keep, but you need to bring the water level up. And so we're in a point where our water level has been pretty good, but we're about to hit like, I think another growth level. And it took a lot of marketing to get here.
Wow, dude, hand-to-hand combat, man. It's like, how many freaking random LinkedIn connections and conversations I've had to have over the last few months to find our way. That's just what it fucking takes. It's
And I saw
literally like how it goes.
someone on X yesterday said, as an agency, how are you getting new clients? It seems like cold email, cold calls, cold everything doesn't work anymore. I said, you are 100%
Absolutely
correct,
true.
because AI tools have created a ton of noise. And now people are just speaking their emails, speaking their automations, and everybody's got an open claw and they're running. So you see sort of an enshittification of the outreach, and this becomes the right medium. I said, listen, it's for us, it's podcasts and it's meetups, because they know we're real. And that's really all we could do. And then it's actually reaching out in comments. And a lot of those come back and then they don't reach back out. And I've had people do that for like fractional CTO type stuff. They reach out, they go, yeah, we want to talk. And you go, great. Schedule a meeting, doesn't schedule, I'm not going to chase if you're in that much pain. But again, I also truly believe that the recommendation as an agency is the gold standard. Most people do not spend the amount of money we ask them to spend without knowing from someone else that we do a good job. And so that's a we double down on that for sure. Double down on relationships. Secret superpower is we are in New York. It's an incredible market here, so that you have to take advantage of that.
And speaking of, shout out to Scott Werner and Artificial Ruby and everything that you put on. This is just how it goes, man. Like I don't even know how you figured out about Artificial Ruby. I think we're writing a lot of Ruby these days. And I think you were just looking for community. You were just looking to meet new people in that particular conversation. Turns out it's not very much about Ruby anymore. It's more about
it's
general and just the career and yeah.
Scott came up to me at the meetup, but he said, I'm speaking at, I think it's RubyConf in Vegas. And he said, the hard thing is I have not written code, like actual Ruby code myself in about 8 months. And I said, I know if there's one thing, I talked to Joe Leo on his podcast where I said, even when we were going through the LLM's problems, my first thing was finding another LLM that could give me reasonable output, start experimenting with open source. But I wasn't going back to hand typing the code again. And I think that is the writing's on the wall. We're not going back there. The use of LLMs to author the code is too quick. And the use of Ruby is wonderful because it's all really readable. So it's very easy for me to review it at a glance. But again, I still go back to that. It's sort of like you talked about the whisper flow thing. Are like kids never going to type in the computer again? I still think it's important to learn to type, handwrite code. I just don't think people are going to be walking around like speaking.
I know you don't
machine.
think, but when you were 6 years old, there was no keyboard to type on. We weren't doing that yet. Like I remember being in like elementary school.
My kids' hands aren't big enough or whatever. Yeah,
So I just wonder what the interaction will be, the evolution of the interaction. I'm not so sure. Anyway, at Artificial Ruby, we were having a conversation, right? I think everybody that we kind of come into contact with is always asking that question that you were referring to on X, which is, how is the agency driving business? How is the agency evolving in the age of AI? And so there were 3 different founder groups, businesses that took the stage. We were one of them. We were sandwiched between 2 formidable groups of founders. One was Nancy Rode of Alter New, I believe it was. Shout out to Nancy, did a great job. And the other 2 was Mary Holland Nader and Kara Cook of Mary and Pip, which I really find very interesting that just their thesis was really cool. Like they're trying to build a women's focused financial clarity platform, which I think is really dope. I think that the world really needs more of that. People are really scared of their money or don't know how to work with it. I think that's a really cool thesis.
Well, we talked about it is maybe women is their target market, but I think like everybody wants something like that. I was like, listen, I don't know. I was talking to them after. I said, I've seen the show industry. I don't know what the hell they're talking about. All I know is that I've been broke for too long to ever think about money the way that these people just like throw it around at these hedge funds. And I don't think I'll ever be able to, even if I made a ton of money, I don't think I'll ever be able to see it like that. When people go, money's a tool, I go, fuck you. Like, it's like money is life, bro. Like, it's like literally the thing. Sometimes I feel like it's like I just have a very hard time getting over that. Maybe that mindset changes at some point. But I think that people who, it is true, people who like either come from money or grew up with like maybe investment backgrounds, they have a much different relationship with money than those who sort of come into it. And I think that was the theme for me is you have a lot of influencers, many of whom are women, that come into money. And then they have to think about it differently. How do I invest my paycheck? And I found myself in sort of similar shoes. Like all of a sudden you're making more money than you've ever made, but you still have the attitude of the time when everything was scarce. How do you change that? Do you ever get comfortable? I don't know. It's hard for me to imagine. You know what I mean? It's hard for me to imagine. I'm a Mr. Wonderful fan where he's like, respect every dollar, like I really do respect every dollar.
Kind of how you have to be, especially running a small business.
You really do.
You have to be.
When times are good, that there's always something around the corner that you can't see, dude. You just can't see.
Every time. Made an entire
I just filled up my tank, $75. $75 to fill up my pretty good, dude. Gas is like twice the price as it was. But I didn't see that coming around the corner.
Oh, you filled your gas tank. I'm thinking about your oil tank, and I'm like $75
no,
for the oil tank.
I did fill my oil tank. That costs like $800.
Yeah, I was like, wait,
that was not pretty good. $75 to fill my freaking home heating oil.
No, I know, dude. At the pump is.
And then you get the solar guy who comes over. He's like, yeah, you just got to replace that, and then you got to convert your whole home to electric heat, and you'll be at break even in like 30 years. And you're like, oh, great, thanks, bro.
Sick. Wonderful. Sweet sales pitch.
It's
All right,
not
so
being middle class hard.
I have one last topic for us today, and it really is about the agency's evolution in the age of AI. Like how am I trying to find my way? There's so much fodder out there. There's so much noise produced by the machine at the moment, and I'm guilty. I'm participating. I'm curious. I really want to know if
Making
like there's
noise
a
right
secret.
now.
Making noise right now. It is what it is. Literally, while we're on this podcast, Zoe Computer is cooking gas over here. Now,
Yeah.
here's the part that I really have a struggle with. We have talked about and heard about. We were at AI Engineer in Miami and hearing a lot about this, which is a business's reliance, attachment, building your entire product on the back of an LLM service like Claude, for example.
Oh, yeah.
And so
This
this
is
is
a
my
great
conversation. This is my real time problem that I'm troubleshooting with Zoe Computer. I wake up yesterday morning and all of my automations, like 7 of them, all of my automations have failed. And so I'm troubleshooting with Zoe. What's the problem? You stitching together the timeline, what's happening like in the space? What happened this week with Claude and what happened on
Claude
next?
is shitting the bed. I
So
told you I switched.
this is
Gone. Canceled
my
Claude.
problem.
Gone. Switched to OpenAI. They're over.
Originally, so this is like the benefit of using a platform like Zoe. So I'm troubleshooting with Zoe. I figure out that what actually happened is the API integration that I selected from my Max subscription with Claude doesn't work the way that it did originally. And so when I'm troubleshooting it with Zoe, what's nice about Zoe is it's like, hey, we have a native sonnet integration. Do you want to just move away from your subscription to Claude to our native Sonnet integration? They probably have like an enterprise level Sonnet subscription or using an open source model or something like that. And easy enough. I'm like, yeah, switch all the automations to your native solution and cool. Let's just keep it going. Zoe Computer fires it up, solves the problem, remediates. I have no idea what it actually fixed, but all I know is it's still working
it's
and
just
still
using it's still Anthropic. So like if Anthropic has a global outage, you're going to have the same problem again.
Of course.
So that's the
now
issue.
Here's my scenario.
It's not open source.
Now, what I did, just to be like, well, fuck, is this systemic? I went into Fin, our homegrown project management solution. I went into Ask Fin, the AI support tool, and I said, are you operational? Just wanted to like ping it just to see if it stood up. I know that it's backed by Claude. I don't know if you made any changes to it. Sure enough, it's fine. Works just fine. But this is where the conversation is kind of turning on me, which is there are plenty of businesses that are out here. We have built products on the back of these subscriptions. And so when these businesses wake up and they say, nope, I'm going to pull it back. I'm going to charge you extra. I'm not going to include that service in your subscription anymore. Whatever 1,000 different ways to die when you rely on somebody else's product that's just simply trying to figure out profitability and product market fit still, even though they're really doing very well. And I'm like, man, like my entire outreach and automation process, I basically lost an entire day of work yesterday because of outage that I had to troubleshoot that I couldn't figure out for a minute. And so the conversation that I want to have with you is, what does it look like to hitch your wagon to a service that you have no control over whether it's going to exist tomorrow or cut you off tomorrow? Like that just seems irresponsible to me as a business.
The engineer's mindset is you don't do that, which is why I haven't done that. Right.
Sure, but the vibe coder's mindset is like, sure, sounds easy. Here's my key.
Well, Vibe Coder doesn't know what they did. They just hit the enter button and accept all the all the changes. No, for me, everybody knows this who's been following me for any period of time is I'm always experimenting. Even now, I'm all about Codex, all about OpenAI. I'm not married to it. It's what's working today. I still fire up local models. I still use Olama. I still try all these different things and tools like OpenCode and Pi.dev because I know that I don't want to get overly dependent. Something this essential to the way we work. This is affecting everything now. This is absolutely essential to our profitability. It's essential to our cash flow. It's essential to our ability to deliver the product. All of our timelines are now based on AI. And if suddenly I had to tell all of my customers we're going to go back to hand coding, all of my contracts are irrelevant. I have a little bit of a follow-up beyond this that'll take. So I'm constantly testing these things and I'm always prepared. Codex and GPT 5.5 is working really well for me and the team now. I canceled my Claude subscription and moved over to Codex, but it's also why I do believe that we need healthy competition in this space.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
You canceled your subscription because your use case of how you're using these tools became troublesome. You were latent, the inaccuracy, the unreliability. Like, you can't just shit the bed in the middle of my workday. I got to go and switch tools. Like, your use case is different. I don't typically use Claude in the terminal. I have it. I use it. I use it more to like troubleshoot my machine than I'm using it to complete my job. I'm just using Claude in the browser and it works beautifully. I just used it this morning to ship an entire episode. And so for me, like, I'm not necessarily changing away from Claude. It's still working for me.
But OpenAI has a browser extension that'll do the exact same thing. So for me, the reliability is very clear. So there's a couple of things that I don't love about Anthropic. One, if you look at their uptime monitor, it's abysmal. It's not what we're used to.
And I don't even think it's accurate. I think it's even worse than what they're claiming.
Right. It's not. What you're saying works. It's because different models work at different times and are going out at different times. It's not necessarily the service. But for me, there was that. Anthropic has gradually been jacking prices up on people and withdrawing certain agreements. I'm not a very happy. You remember, I wasn't very happy about headless CMSs when they started doing that, and I moved away from them. Because I have the power to do it. I have agency. As a developer, I do not have to take your bullshit. So I'm not going to sit here and do that. And the same thing, I've always said that I will use a lesser model. I'll use Quencoder and move a little bit slower if it means that you're going to extort me for money randomly because you woke up and felt that way one day. For me, OpenAI has not done that. And if anything, their product seems to be getting better. So fine. And this goes back, people have their feelings about the founders and all these types of things. There's a lot of politics. Like, for me, both founders have said stupid things. However, Sam Altman has seemingly repented for his sin of saying that he was going to eliminate everybody, that this was going to eliminate people's jobs. And AGI is he's seemingly kind of on the side of, wait, this is going to create more, and I'm an optimist about this stuff. I'm not really appreciative of the fear-mongering that Anthropic's been putting out in the world, which just makes me feel yucky about using their product, which kind of stinks. But I've even moved like my general AI, like on my phone, the app, and my planning and the desktop app. Just stop wanting to reach for Claude. I just found myself wanting to stop. And GPT works just as good, if not better. And I do think there's something to be said for, hey, I sell a product to humans, but I put out rhetoric that is sort of like, I hate you people. And so I was like, I don't really feel good about that. And so for me, now that could change tomorrow. Like, again, the feelings. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm going to hate this person. It just changes my feeling when I reach for the tool, knowing that the founder's sort of against humanity. That's at least what it feels like. I always point back to the Super Bowl commercial. I said that was a turning point for me with Claude. I didn't quite switch at that moment, but I said during the Super Bowl, Codex put out a commercial with all this very uplifting, optimistic, like, imagery, and it was all about how anybody was a builder. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, that looked cool. Codex is cool, and it empowers people. It empowers me. I'm excited about this. Anthropic put out a little hit commercial making fun of OpenAI about possibly putting ads in their responses, which wasn't even true. So they spent all this money on a Super Bowl ad, but it brought me back to this idea in Mad Men, and when they're debating the lemon ad for Volkswagen, and Don Draper goes, yeah, you may not like it, but we've been talking about Volkswagen for 20 minutes now. And all I was thinking was Codex made me wonder about OpenAI, and Claude's commercial bashing on OpenAI made me think of OpenAI. And so I was like, wow, what a faux pas. Like what a classic sales mistake. And so from that point, I started getting curious. Then there was the Mythos publicity stunt. I think at this point we can call it a publicity stunt because they haven't released Mythos, and we've had tons of security holes being found by all the AI that's out there anyway. Had nothing to do with Mythos. There was the publicity stunt. There was the jacking up of the rates. There was the removal. They were not letting you use your Claude Max plan with open source tools like OpenCode, which was also a kind of affront to developers. And I get it. It's their product. They could do what they want. I'm a capitalist too. I just didn't like it as a consumer. I didn't like it. I don't have to be fair to you. You're a company, not a person, right? So it is what it is. I didn't like that stuff. So it was a series of actions, and it's very clear in the market. If you've looked, Claude Code and Anthropic has lost usage and favor, and they had the developer market. They had the favor of developers and they completely lost it. And now everybody's flocking over to Codex. Everyone is flocking over to OpenAI, and feels a little bit like a presidential election where like the polls are doing this, like leading up, it's crazy. They're in a commodity market reality, but I just had this like distinct feeling. And when you're talking to me about Claude, I'm like, yeah, I just don't like them. It doesn't make me feel good. You could switch to GPT and feel good about the tools you use. I may not feel good about it tomorrow though. And I may want to be like all in on Google, or it's just, it's really important to consider those feelings though, when you're putting out marketing rhetoric, I think, especially for them.
The way that I kind of feel about it, it's less emotional. I would use a DeWalt drill. I would use a Ryobi. I would use a Milwaukee. I would use whatever the hell kind of tool that I have access to complete the damn job. And so like, I'm one of these, I have like subscriptions to most of these platforms just because they do things a little bit better. Like they do things differently. Like I use Grok for like image and video creation because I don't really like how Claude handles that. Like I just move around. I don't have like allegiance to any one of these. I figure it's more like a tool shed for me. And I'm just like, hey, I'm going to work on all of these tools because the things that I'm doing with Claude, Grok is not very good at, and vice versa. And the things that I'm doing with Zoe Computer, I don't even want to figure out how to configure on Claude because it just doesn't operate the same way.
Well, that's different scenario. Zoe Computer is using Claude, but you could very easily power it with the thing that I'm telling you is that the things that you're using Claude for, GPT would do just as well. Like Grok is admittedly great at the image generation. I do use that. I do switch to that as well. There are things that I thought Claude was better at. Like, for example, taking a Figma and turning it into UI. I did find that Claude was a bit better at that. I'm willing to give that up, though, to save $200 a month. For me, it wasn't such a difference that it made a difference. And in fact, I'm on the $100 a month GPT plan. So my AI costs went from $200 a month down to $100 a month. And I'm getting the same usage.
It's a lot, bro.
I'm getting the same
$1,200 a year. It's a lot.
So why am I going to continue? So I would say that for me, the cost of AI has gone down, and people are saying it's going to. Anthropic raised their costs because they're having issues. I don't know what's going on. I also think that they're having issues because of what they admit, that they vibe code, that they literally are letting the agents do every single thing inside the company, and it shows in their uptime. I think it's showing in all the technology we use.
For sure.
I think there is just something to be said that, yes, we are moving faster, but things were definitely more stable pre-AI, less outages, less secure, less of a lot of things. We're moving faster. We're brushing the wall. We're hitting the guardrails a little more. It's okay. OpenAI has happened to hit the guardrails a little less than Anthropic is really. Their uptime is pretty abysmal. In my opinion, it was pretty bad. And it was becoming very prohibitive to my work. I have yet to actually hit any OpenAI downtime in my usage where it's just we're out of whatever, just random errors. And the actual Codex tool, the harness itself, is way faster. Claude Code got incredibly slow. And the crazy part about it is my usage was basically the same. It was plan mode, and they're adding things. They're like, we're doing 100 pull requests a day. I go, to what?
Did you want to work on what? I didn't see any updates.
It's just getting slower, and I'm not getting any of the benefits of these things you're adding.
Features.
So I wasn't really feeling the love over there. So I think that you're seeing this sort of hostility, this hey, we could just keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. I think that's showing in the construction of the build. You think about that with cars too, right? You think about when you buy a car, you have these brands in your mind that are like, oh, that's a solid brand, and oh, that's a junky brand, but it's cheap. Anthropic is making a huge mistake because they're raising their prices to be an expensive brand, and you're also thinking of them as a junky brand because of their uptime. They're turning into Jaguar.
Go there.
No, well, no, that's another Mad Men reference.
But you're going to say they're turning into GitHub.
Well, GitHub too, but Jaguar in Mad Men, they talked about sign the Jaguar deal, and they're like, it's like a really expensive car that's not reliable. Like It was reliable enough for the guy to he ends up like committing suicide. It's a very good segment when they're doing the Jaguar deal, but it was the same idea. Really expensive car that's really not very reliable. And I think that's what like Anthropic is falling into that space. And I was like, man, you're falling into the expensive car, not super reliable category, and that's a death zone, man. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm sure they're going to be able to recover it because most people are not literally micro following the following it in X, and tons of people who receive their news slower than we do are still thinking
Totally.
that.
And the majority of the consumer usage is more like me, is more like the dabbler. It does the job. They don't know any better. They're not using it to the extremes of its abilities, and they're not really worried about the politics behind it. They're just using the damn tool because they like it. They like the logo. They like the color. They like the UI, whatever.
But you don't like picking up your drill and it being broken.
Yeah, no, battery dead or not fucking working, right? Totally.
So you're like, I just pick up the tool. I go, yeah, but the problem is I was picking up the tool, the battery was charged, and it wouldn't drive the freaking screw into the wall. So I like using Milwaukee. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, me too, bro. Me too. Well, dude, I think that's a good place to wrap it up for the episode. I think we covered a lot of stuff. I think it really is like the evolution of the agency model. I can really only talk about my business and how we're doing shit and how we're trying to figure it out. It's all really in the vein of us trying to move faster without the loss of quality. Regardless of the tools that power our business, I have to obfuscate that difficulty.
You have to keep the standard, man. You don't want to fall into that no man's land of being a premium product with a bad durability reputation.
That's exactly right. So since the beginning of time for us, since we started this business, there was only one true north, which was speed and quality. And that's always going to be true. We're faster than ever, but I think the quality is higher than it's ever been. And whatever tools are powering that process, going to be changing over the next few years. That's for damn sure. They changed this year in comparison to last year and the 5 years before that. So here we are.
Bro, it could be a third company we don't even see.
Of course. And it will be. See you, bro.